So how can we talk about the information that was passed on in October since that was a break, let's call it a breach in information passing, and how just a couple years later we moved into a proactive scenario where we effectively reviewed everything we needed to know and then we started becoming a first actor.
First of all, prime ministers read what they have time to read. Sometimes, if it's a topic that they're particularly interested in, of course, they'll sit and read an entire or even lengthy document. But for the most part, that's not the case. They simply don't have the time, and it's something like what I was describing before. There's no guarantee against failures. There's no perfect decision-making process. Look at the US, which may have the most sophisticated national security decision-making process of any country. And I'm talking in the pre-Trump era. And it has gotten it wrong royally many times. And the same is true for every country. And you can take you're absolutely right. You called Israel an information superpower. We have a very sophisticated system, one of the more sophisticated ones in the world. And we had October 6th, 1973, and we had October 7th, 2023, 50 years and one day later. Sometimes really smart people screw up really badly. It's not just a matter of getting them and getting decision makers to read material, to understand the material, but they have to be willing to accept it. You can't force them to accept what you've said. And by the way, very often they say, hey, who elected you prime minister? Or, there's a reason I got elected here. I've been around for a very long time. I've been briefed by the best and the brightest in Israel and abroad. In many cases, I'm directly involved in affairs that you don't know about, or I know far more about. When you talk about intelligence people in countries like Israel, the US, UK, Canada, strong democracies, there is a clear division between intelligence and policy. The intelligence people don't usually know what their side is doing, and they're not supposed to know. And they're not apprised of what's happening. How are they then going to assess events in which you are an active participant? If I'm making this up now, and you're Israel and you're asked to assess what's happening in South Africa, okay. Or what's happening in Chile, I'm just trying to take places that are very far away from us. Okay. And nobody knows more than you do about that because they aren't in the center of the focus of anyone's attention. But when you're talking about the issues, it's the Palestinian issue, Iran, issues that we're deeply involved in, Israel is 50% of the picture, right? Sometimes a lot more than that. And you don't know about that. And the decision maker sometimes says, yeah, these guys, I know a lot more. Sometimes he or she is right. Sometimes the experts are right. But the experts remember, they're unelected. They supply the decision maker with information and advice. It's the decision maker's responsibility to make the decisions and hopefully make good ones. And when they don't, in democracies, we have the great fortune of being able to throw the bastards out once every 4 years or less in parliamentary system.
Fascinating. Tell me about a decision. Well, let's look at a specific case. The pagers that exploded. Is that an example of a decision top down or bottom up? Like, would that be an example of one that comes out of very intelligent strategists from the academia? Or is that coming from some other place that would be unbeknownst?
No, the pager and the walkie-talkie affair is going to go down in the annals of espionage, of intelligence operations as one of the greatest cases ever. This was brilliance. But this was something that was, and this is all open source information that I'm saying now. The Mossad worked on this for 10 years, maybe even a little more. And I think for a very long part of that period, they didn't know if it would ever be used and if it would ever actually work because there were so many different things that had to come together. And in the end, the timing seemed to be a matter just of it was use it or lose it. Hezbollah had gotten information about it, or they'd gotten quite suspicious about it, sent one of the phones off to Iran for them to look at it. And so we had to use it before we couldn't. This wasn't a matter of great strategic thinking. One of the biggest strategic transformations imaginable, decimating Hezbollah. Hezbollah was our primary enemy for the last 20 years. Of course, we were afraid of a nuclear Iran, but Iran wasn't there yet. And we underestimated Hamas. In the past, maybe no, but certainly on October 7th. It was Hezbollah. And this wasn't strategic brilliance. This was operational brilliance or intelligence brilliance. But the timing was almost a matter of just good fortune.
So that's an interesting situation, and it's nice to see where it comes from. It's straight Mossad planning, 10 years, and it wasn't necessarily activated at the time it was intended to be activated, but that's how the world works is there's theory and then there's practice. It's very interesting. So with regards to Iran decision making right now, considering that Iran really is the focal point, it's the hub, for example, receiving such samples, running tests, providing reports, giving executive ordinances to the various factions that are working for it throughout the Middle East and abroad. What exactly are they going through in their thought processes? I mean, the leadership has been fractured and decimated, except for the very top. And there are so many different types of uses of different channels of communication, such as through social media, Twitter. We see the president speaking through Twitter and the prime minister, etc. Posturing. What exactly is going through Iran's mind right now, and how are they able to move forward here in a way that's going to be good for the people, that will effectively reduce the separation between the good citizens and the citizens of the world, enhance freedom for all of the good actors out there, and improve the future for the Middle East and the world? What can they do to move themselves in that direction? What's on the table for them? What's practical? And are they even thinking that way?
I think, first of all, you have to know something about Iran in the sense that Iran is not just another state of the almost 200 in the world today. Iran is the Islamic Republic. The revolution was in 1979. Iran defines itself, or the regime defines itself, as the embodiment of the divine word on earth. And so that the supreme leader, who's known as the Islamist jurist, he interprets the divine word. And so, first of all, the Iranian regime, like any other regime, like in any other country, takes its own longevity, regime stability very, very seriously. If you don't have a government, then everything else doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to defend your people and promote prosperity, whatever. But in this case, if the regime were to be toppled, you're talking sort of toppling God, their interpretation of God. And so if you ask me what's going through their minds at the moment, I would say fear, panic, petrification, because for the first time, they may face a threat, an external threat to the regime.